My name's Margaret Pratt, and my husband Roger Pratt was murdered in St Lucia in January 2014.
I'm Anne Pearson, and sadly my mother was killed in her garden in St Lucia almost 6 years ago.
My name's Georgina. I travelled to St Lucia in February 2016 and I was raped.
We were at anchor in Vieux-Fort, where the boat was boarded by 4 people, and there was a big fight. I was beaten up. Roger was so badly beaten up, he suffered brain damage before he went into the water unconscious and sadly died.
My mother's body was discovered in her garden early on the morning of the 16th of October 2011. My sister raised the alarm from London because she wasn't able to get a response on the phone.
I travelled there to do a sailing course, and I travelled with a company that do sailing courses just for women. The second night that I was there, I went to bed about midnight, and I was woken up about 3 in the morning to find a man in my bedroom, a local man, and I was raped. I was being choked throughout the assault. I was struggling to breathe. The terror I cannot describe. If you imagine the moment of terror you have when you maybe round a bend on a country road and there's a car coming straight towards you, I had that only extended over a period of time. I didn't think I was going to be coming home to my daughters.
At the end of January 2014, I was led to believe that the case would be coming to trial imminently. The 4 people who were charged had all made, I was told, voluntary confessions. I know there was DNA evidence, good DNA evidence on which to charge. 3.5 years on, went back into court on the 7th of July. The expert witness didn't turn up, didn't even put in an appearance, and in addition, the Crown prosecutor didn't even have the courtesy of having my case file with him. The timescale has slipped at least another 4 months.
She had 3 dogs. They were guard dogs, they were her pets, but guard dogs to everybody else. And we felt certain that the person who came into the yard was somebody who got on very well with the dogs. 2 of the dogs were in the house, and 1 was missing, together with Mum's car. The car was picked up a few days later, having been very badly resprayed. He did take one of the dogs and tried to sell the dog, and in doing so he was caught. Tomorrow is the 50th date that the case will have been in court. Many of those have been adjourned. There is a huge lack of communication at all levels, from the top to the bottom. We've had a tremendous amount of help from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, the British High Commission in St Lucia, and also my local MP. And really, without their help, we'd have felt totally abandoned.
The police came and picked us up, and to my astonishment they took me back to the house where I'd been raped to take my statement. And unbelievably, this statement was taken in the presence of the 4-year-old daughter of one of the police officers. They sent a scene of crime officer who didn't dust for fingerprints, sort of turned up with a fancy camera and took a lot of photographs. So that was the level of professionalism that I was encountering from the beginning. And in June, I was told that the DNA samples had not been processed. And I was told that there was no intention on the part of the St Lucia police at that time to process those DNA samples, because they didn't think it was worth processing them until they had DNA from a suspect, which I found absolutely astonishing, because the priority, if something like that had happened here, would be to see if DNA matched records that they already had. I have no expectations whatsoever that they will find the perpetrator. Given the lack of professionalism on the part of the police when I was there, All of us, we share the same concern. We want to protect other people from the terrible experiences that we've all suffered, and we want to make sure that people are aware of the dangers of travelling to St Lucia. The rates of crime in the Caribbean have absolutely skyrocketed, and I don't think that's something that tourists are aware of.
They're not.
No.
They're not.
A month after I was raped, the St Lucia Prime Minister, Kenny Anthony, made a statement about rape on the island, which has reached epidemic proportions. And he said, and I quote, "serial rapists on the loose." I don't think people who travel to St Lucia are aware of that. I looked on the Foreign and Commonwealth Office page. It's quite generic, but I don't think it gives an idea of the gravity of the risks for tourists travelling to St Lucia. Would you agree with me?
I think actually things have got a lot worse since your incident, because already they've got 32 homicides this year.
Have they?
And there were 31 in the whole of last year.
It's terrible.
It's absolutely shocking.
There's an increase in crime. We know that the police struggle to investigate. They struggle to bring things to conclusion. And then when it does reach the court systems are ineffective, don't deliver, lack of professionalism, lack of respect, lack of competence it would be how I personally see it.
Well, that was certainly my experience, but what I also think is absolutely extraordinary is that this is an island that relies on tourism for its income. You know, this is a place where, you know, there's a lot of economic deprivation, which in itself feeds into crime. You know, wealthy Western tourists going there and local deprivation. And the island needs those tourist dollars, which I think is one reason why crime is swept under the carpet.
There's an awful lot of pulling the wool over the local people's eyes, because recently they've said in the press that something like 51% of the cases have been solved. I think that's the cases so far this year, the 32 homicides. And they're not solved at all. What they mean is that they've detained people.
Yes,
you know,
that's not the same.
As far as sexual assault is concerned, I mean, it's well known that wherever you are in the world, there are sort of big barriers to coming forward. There are stigmas around sexual assault. I felt vulnerable. I felt afraid of going to the police. I didn't know what kind of treatment I was going to have. And it's quite a sort of macho culture in the Caribbean, and I don't think that women are heard when they're sexually assaulted, and I think the rates of sexual assault that affect local women are astronomical. But the last thing I would want to do is to sort of malign the general population of St Lucia, because I was treated very kindly, for example, by the staff at the hospital who dealt with me after I'd been assaulted. They were very kind, they were very regretful and very apologetic about what had happened to me as a visitor, as a guest. But those people are being profoundly let down by their police, by their judicial system, and I think that that's very wrong also.
If the criminal justice system were a private business, it would have been shut down a long time ago and would have some serious questions to answer to its stakeholders, because they're not providing the service.
And also, I mean, the failures of the criminal justice system there, another thing that feed into the crime epidemic.
Of course.
Because there's no disincentive. People know, violent criminals know that they can commit these crimes with impunity. You know, so where's the deterrent?
Nobody's in a position, I am beginning to feel, to do anything. All sorts of assurances have been made to us over the years from, you know, all sorts of people, from all levels of officialdom, and it has meant nothing.
I think by temperament I have to be optimistic. I think that these are good people. It's in that professional culture. Well, I wouldn't call it professional.
I think that the population of St Lucia in their own way are as much victims of this as any of us.
Absolutely.
I mean, talking about optimism, I was pleased when a month after I was raped, the Prime Minister there, as I said, made a statement saying we've got serial rapists on the loose on the island, something has got to be done about this. But that hasn't been reflected in any development since.
No.
So it just feels as if, you know, is the Prime Minister sincere in trying to sincere in trying to make a difference, was it just lip service?
I'm sure they have all the best intentions, as everybody does, but actually it doesn't feel as if that's enough.
The time for talking is over.
Yeah, it
there's
needs to be
got
backed
to
up with
action.
action. Exactly.
And I know I'm certainly determined that my mother Gloria Greenwood will not just be a statistic from 2011.